Congressman Johnson, good to have you. How are you, sir?
Good morning, Dan. How are you this morning?
I'm well, thank you. Does this come up in your conversation much, though? I mean, as you're talking to your colleagues about the $15 trillion debt and what if we defaulted on it? Do people
every day? Every day, Dan. That is the biggest topic of conversation that we have. And you know, not only are we $15 trillion in debt, this administration has amassed more debt than any other president in their first term in American history.
Well, what I was thinking too, Bill, is the thing about it is that, not to interrupt you, but just the audacity for the president to come out with a budget and say that he's going to deficit spend next year $1.3 trillion again. That alone I would think, just bring a red flag up to any thinking American that this is not the way forward.
Well, it does, and I can tell you that budget will never pass the House. There is no way that budget will get through the House nor the Senate. Let's see what the Senate does. Remember, last year in 2011, the Senate couldn't even pass the president's budget, and that's a Democrat-controlled Senate. So. Right. Even they recognize that continuing this deficit spending is the wrong path for America to take. The way to get us back to fiscal solvency is to get the private sector going and create jobs, not continue this out-of-control spending.
Just reading something from a gentleman from the Cato Institute, and he says, the United States wouldn't even have to make hard choices if they simply slowed the rate of government growth. We would eventually balance the budget.
Yeah, you know, we put forth a budget in 2011 that called the Path to Prosperity budget that would have balanced the federal budget, but we couldn't get the Senate to take a look at it. I talked with you last week about the bill that I introduced called Pass a Budget Now Act. That's going to require the House and the Senate to do what the law requires them to do and pass a budget by April 15th. Or they start getting their pay docked, and that pay and the money that they lose in salary goes toward paying down the national debt. I'm hopeful that this is going to continue to gain support so that we can hold Congress accountable and the Senate particularly accountable for doing its job.
Just to bring you folks up to date, what Congressman Johnson announced last week, that if in fact the House and Senate, they don't pass a bill, that they would know if they don't pass a budget, they would not get paid. Right?
That's right.
Your pay would end.
Starting on April 16th, they don't get salary, and that salary is not put in escrow so that they can get it later. They simply lose that money, and it goes toward paying down the national debt.
Yeah. But you said that you do have conversations with your colleagues all the time about this growing federal debt and the danger it has for Social Security, for Medicare, for all of the government programs that we know and love.
Oh, absolutely. It is unmistakably the biggest problem that we have in this country is the growing debt. I think you may remember that the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs, Admiral Mullins, said that the national debt is the biggest national security risk that America faces. Because look at what we're having to do, how we're having to slash our military. And other national security related programs. So
but you know what,
it's something that's got to be addressed.
I don't want to be so partisan that I don't think that the Democrats ever have a good idea. I don't want to go there, but when I look at what they have put forward here in the recent budget, and I'm not an economist, but they want to increase the federal budget by $7.3 trillion over the next 10 years, and they're calling it a cut because it would have increased $9.48 trillion. Isn't
it funny how they play on those words? It's unbelievable how they do that, and that's not cutting. We've got to cut and shrink the size of the federal government. We've got to stop doing many of the things that the Constitution doesn't even require the federal government to do, and get them back to focusing on putting the private sector in play, because that's what America's economy is based on. We're the largest economy in the world, but we're in jeopardy of losing that status if we don't do something.
Where do we go, though? I mean, here we are. I'm doing a talk show here in Youngstown. I can see the problem because the biggest problem that I'm thinking down there, and it's partly selfish because at some point I would like to draw Social Security, and I can see right now that if we default and we can't borrow money, the Social Security Trust Fund is owed $4 trillion, and we're basically going to be SOL.
Dan, yeah, the programs that you're talking about, if we want to, and I do, remember, I supported a Protect the Social Security Trust Fund Act. I also support the saving, strengthening, and preserving Medicare for future generations. But we're not going to do it proceeding the way that we're going. We're going to have to make some tough decisions, and that starts with getting the federal government out of the way of the private sector, creating jobs, and shrinking